We are good to go.
And call to order at 7:03 by my clock. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. First of all, we'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe people. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous people of Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Thank you. Number eight, I know you all have the agenda in front of you. We'll be moving on to number 2. Are there any additions to the agenda this evening? Just speak out if you feel there's anything that needs to be added or any changes that we need to make to our agenda. Well, that's fine. If there's no changes to be made to our agenda or additions to be added, I ask for a motion to approve our agenda this evening.
I'll make the motion there.
Thank you, John. Seconded by?
I can.
Thank
Shirley.
you, Leanne. I'm sorry, I'm just looking for hands, and I heard you, Shirley. All in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Moving on to number 3. Does anyone have, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest, any conflicts of interest with anyone in any of the business we have moving forward this evening? Again, feel free to speak if that is an issue for you. By your silence, I accept the fact that there's no conflict there. Moving on to number 3, I know you've all had a chance to go back and look through the February 8th meeting minutes. Are there any changes or any questions in regards to the February 8th minutes? I went through them today. I couldn't see any major anything that we had to alter, but you might catch something that needs correcting or changing. So take that moment. If not, we'll. Your silence indicates that you are fine with the minutes. We need a motion to approve the minutes of the February 8th meeting. Becky's making that motion. I need someone to second that motion. Thank you, Leanne. All in favor? Thank you. At this point, we move to number 5, which is correspondence. I have no correspondence from my role as the chair. I'll turn to Ellen. Is there any current correspondence you wish to share with us?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. With no correspondence to discuss, let's move on to minutes, business arising from the minutes. I wanted to make sure John was aware. John got cut off last week and I was not sure if John, I did check the past minutes and you are in the position, the PCIN rep for 2 years. All those positions were appointed for 2 years. If you didn't hear it at that meeting the last time, that's the only thing I wanted to clarify.
Okay.
And sorry, John.
No, I say that's great.
Okay. And we're also, we've also noted some of the things, the highlights of the last set of minutes, and we'll continue to revisit them. For example, the strategic plan and a few of the other things that were listed in there will be revisited. Let's move on to our financial reports. Financial report, if you look at 7.1, which is our accounts payable, they go from January 28th until February 11th. If you have a question in regards to an expenditure, could you just state the page it's on so we can, so Sarah can reference to that page and we can look at it from there. Is there any questions or comments that you have in regards to any of the expenditures or accounts payable?
I had a question actually.
Go ahead.
I have it on page 9.
Okay.
Yeah, it's with the RBC Visa Group. It just says annual maintenance renewal. And it's $1,082.02.
Yes. Ellen, would you like to clarify that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. You know what, Becky? I'm going to have to check on that one.
Oh, that's fine.
The maintenance renewal, I think, might be the lift, but I'll double check and bring it back to the next meeting.
That would make sense.
Separately.
Yep, no, that's fine.
Thank you. We'll make sure it's noted for the next meeting for that to be reviewed. Ellen shared a couple points with me today, and I'm going to ask her to briefly share those points with the board. That there might be some confusion in regards to some of the items listed on our accounts payable. And Ellen, I'll turn that to you just for a moment.
Thanks to you, Mr. Chair. And Becky, I wonder if this is one of them. There's a few charges on here, like the propane and the snow removal, that are popping up. Those are maintenance costs. And the way we presented our budget for 2022 to council is those would be under our occupancy fees. So the municipality is working on a new GL project where the GL codes are going to be switched to what they are to something new. And because that process hasn't completed yet due to some setbacks, we're still seeing some of those charges on our accounts, but they're actually going to be in this big funnel of occupancy costs. Although the propane one, I've got a few questions out about that one because that's the old Moncton library and we don't pay propane anywhere else. And those are not supposed to be our charges anyway. So those have been caught and inquiries have been sent out that way.
Thank you, Ellen. Matt has a question for you or a comment. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, when we on council, when we do accounts, just for clarification and for saving it going from meeting to meeting, just a thought for the board for consideration only is that if you happen to have a question about a line item on the accounts, is possibly send an email to Ellen and ask it, and then they can be mentioned that the accounts had the following questions, and then it saves going back after the fact, that if we had something for a question, that's only for board consideration, then it saves waiting for another month to get an answer on the accounts that came forward tonight. So if you happen to have a question on it, like I said, only for suggestion and consideration, is to look at the accounts and say, hey, what is this all about? And that would give Ellen time to look into it and to come forward. The board had the following questions for accounts, if it's something you just happen to notice on that day, but it's just, it gives time for an adequate response at the time when we're going through accounts. That's only for board consideration going forward.
Thank you, Matt.
Sometimes we would have lots and lots and lots of questions about the accounts, and you go through them and take a long time. The library is totally different, but there's usually only a few questions, but sometimes it takes a little time to go through it, but it's kind of nice to have an answer at the night when you actually are going through it at that time. And that also gives opportunity to find the correct answer as to what it was. And we had the following questions regarding the accounts. The annual maintenance fee was for whatever. It was this, that, and the other. If anyone else happened to question it, any other questions, and then they would have to come back. So just a thought, just my 2 cents.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Sorry, I was like, when Matt was talking, I'm like, I have the accounts next to me. That's actually our renewal for our printing process, our print software and Visionware. That charge, Becky.
Thank you. Any other questions in regards to our accounts payable? Okay, if there's no further questions about our accounts payable, we need a motion for our accounts payable from January 28th to February 11th. Would somebody like to make that motion? Becky, thank you. Seconded by Matt. All in favor of approving the accounts payable? Thank you. Accounts payable complete. We're moving on to 7.1. We're looking at the 2021 year-end statement. I know people have had the opportunity to go through the statement and have a look at it. There is a lot there to go through. The nice thing about it is we're in the positive, and we're doing fine financially at this point. As a matter of fact, we're certainly below our actuals at this point. But are there any questions in regards to the expenditures, or the annual general ledger for 2021? This was presented for information only tonight, correct, Ellen?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question, actually.
Go ahead, John.
Barry. Let's see. I gotta find the page here. It looks like maybe page 16.
Okay.
The library administration, first line, budgeted and actual, like that. Is that right? Is that correct?
Was that the 119,000 line
Yeah.
item?
Yes.
That would be correct.
Okay, that's okay. All right.
If you want
Yeah,
a more,
I'm reading that the wrong way. Sorry.
okay. No, it is correct, and we under budgeted by a few $100s there, but
I was
no.
thinking total year as opposed to year to date. So
Yeah.
that, my apologies.
Okay. Any other questions in regards to the 2021 year-end statement? Well, we brought everything in budget, so I guess we can look at it this way. We stayed within budget, and that's a positive thing. We're still significantly under budget, and hopefully, again, that was due to the pandemic, I'm certain of, and as we move forward, those numbers will likely change in 2022 as we reopen and we move into the endemic. So that was for your information. Number 8, we have no friends reports tonight, I was told, and so unless Becky waves to me and says she's discovered something she missed, okay, we'll move right on. We're moving on to board development. And the first thing we will be looking at is the meeting schedule discussion. Earlier this year, we approved a schedule of 8 meetings without March and May. And Ellen has talked to me about it, and we realize we have a number of things we wish to accomplish this year, and 8 meetings does not seem adequate enough to achieve everything we wish to do. And so we've put in a March meeting, and we're questioning whether a May meeting will be necessary. We've put it in because we want it to work on the strategic plan. So it has been placed there. Ellen did ask me about 12 meetings, and I was concerned over the summer that many of you have summer commitments, and that if we did meet and we were unable to reach quorum, it is almost, I don't want to say a waste of time, but we're just spinning our wheels if we are unable to make decisions. And I know I have commitments this summer, and I don't know about other members of the board. I'm sure they have things they're planning and vacations and different things. So at this point, Ellen, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So our March meeting, we had added our board self-evaluation, our year ends, in our discussion of what we wanted to work on this year. The May has advocacy, but the advocacy might not necessarily be a board meeting. It might be a workshop. Terry and I were talking about that today. And it might just be with staff as we work through the strategic planning process. So it might not necessarily be a meeting, but I would actually prefer a work day. But the July and August meetings, currently there's no plan for those except advocacy pieces.
Any questions about how our schedule has been slightly altered there? Go ahead, Matthew.
Thank you. And through you, the chair, like, given the amount of work that we happen to have, like with strategic plan and stuff like that, all meetings for the board, even though the board agrees to them, there can be at the call of the chair.
Yes.
So if we would like to, hey, it would be nice at some point, even if it's not on the scheduled Tuesday of the month, or to do whatever, possibly in July, can we get quorum? Because we'd like to get this through in July and or August. And I do understand there might be a bit of spinning of wheels, but even to send out a little poll, because we have done that before in past years, what dates work for the majority of people?
Yes.
Even if it happens to be an off evening, and it can save the September meeting from being an incredibly long meeting. It could be something that if we can meet for an hour, hopefully people would be able to do that. If people are off and we can't get quorum and can't come to a consensus, that's fine. But that's for keeping those two meetings, maybe not scheduling something, but keeping them at the call of the chair, that if in discussions with the CEO that we do require a meeting, then that's something that's at your discretion, that you can say, we need to have a meeting here. We need to get a couple of things going forward and get them ready for our fall meeting. So there's a possibility of that. Just a thought.
Thank you, Matt. And Ellen and I have talked about that. And even last year, I have to say the board was extremely gracious and flexible when I did call, John and I spoke and we realized we had to call various meetings due to personnel issues at that time. And you were more than willing to accommodate us so we could have a vote or make decisions. So we'll keep that open and we'll keep that flexibility within our schedule. Ellen and I have talked, if we are going to do strategic planning, the Zoom type meeting does not work for us. We need an extended period of time. We need a place where we can all come together, and we need an opportunity to work in an environment that's conducive to ideas and free flow. So we were thinking about how that option would look. We're looking at maybe finding a place where we could work for 5 to 6 hours, provide lunch for the board and the staff members that are in attendance to develop our strategic and work on our strategic plan. As we come up with a plan there, I'll bring it back to you, board, ask for your basically opinions, what dates would work for you. And Ellen and I will try to schedule something, especially in terms of developing our strategic plan, which Leanne initiated 1.5 years ago. So we need to follow through on that. So we'll keep it open. We'll keep the schedule flexible. And if we do need to meet during July and August, I will do as you notice, I do quickly talk to you all or email you all and let you know of information that you need. So I'll continue to do that. Go ahead, Leanne.
Thanks. Thanks, Terrence. I guess I would prefer to know sooner than later. Then I can, I don't have plans yet this summer, but I would like to make plans. So if I knew when the meeting was, I could work around it. So just a thought, even to have a placeholder in my calendar is always a good idea. Just a thought.
Okay, what I'm suggesting is we follow the same schedule we're on. It would be the second Tuesday of the month in July and August. I'm sorry, I'm sitting at my other desk. I don't have a calendar in front of me. I cannot rhyme off those dates to you, but it would be the second Tuesday in July and the second Tuesday in August. If you have that calendar there and you're able to share that, we can put them in as tentative dates.
July 12th
July 12th, thank you.
and August 9th.
Ellen, can we add those to our working plan, that they be placed in as tentative dates for meetings that we would call that are necessary? And now everybody has at least a date they know they're working with. We'll pass that information as well on to Bernice so she has it. Thank you, Leanne. Go ahead, Matt.
We had done that on council years ago for any meetings, it was basically declared, whether it be education and or council itself, that every Monday night is a tentative meeting. It's always at the call of the chair and no different than a scheduled meeting or every Monday night, even if it happened to have been for education or something that come through, that every Monday night, basically there's the possibility that something could come up unless it gets actually scheduled in COVID times with WebEx or whatever when the invite comes through. So it's just something that mark off every Monday night, and unless you're not available, obviously there's going to be some nights that you're not available, but for the most part, every Monday night was to do that. So if we have a lot of work to do, schedule every library board. If people can't make it, that's one thing.
I agree with you, Matt. I think it's a good idea when the 2022 schedule's drawn up for the new board. That would be something for them to consider, that you book in 12 meetings. Some are tentative, some are firm, and that would be just a good way to have them, and people know those times and they can work their schedules around them. So thank you. I appreciate that. I'll refer that to Ellen because we mightn't be here, but Ellen hopefully will be in place here, and she can certainly do that as a new board comes on.
So is that just for clarity there, Terrence, that July 12th, August 9th, in relation to strategic planning, is that what we're suggesting either of those dates be used for?
No, the May date, John, would be used for the strategic plan. Those would be follow-up dates if we need them. They would be dates that we could approve, and we can use them for any library board business that we have at that time.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments in regards to our schedule and work plan? Well, thank you. We don't need a motion for that. That was, again, an informational item. We're going to move on to 9.2. And it was quite an extensive package that Ellen passed on to us. It's the Intellectual Freedom Policy Review. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back to our CEO, Ellen, and I'll give it back to you, Ellen, and you can share. I'm sure other people have questions in that along the way. Go ahead, Ellen.
Thanks to you, Mr. Chair. So in my report, you'll see that I outlined what we're doing currently as the North Perth Public Library. And I want to say, in my extensive review of Ontario libraries, we're being very transparent. Not all libraries are being as transparent as we are with our policies and our statements and where we stand within our collection. So that's something for the board to consider if you want to be less transparent. But you'll see in the chart, we're doing a lot. Not all libraries do every single thing that we've done. And a lot of things are hard to find. So I tried to take a big look at London, which is kind of our closest big library that had a challenge, and Toronto Public Library, where most of their challenges are actually about their bookable spaces. What's notable is that Toronto Public Library doesn't even actually have an intellectual freedom statement, but most libraries, if they don't have a statement, we do refer to the statement that's included in ours from the that statement on intellectual freedom in libraries, the Canadian Federation of Library Associations. So if they don't have an actual statement, they're actually, most of them just refer to that larger statement, where we get a lot of our guidance. So you'll see, I did make some recommendations at the end of the report that we update our references. So our intellectual freedom statement did not have the references to our respect and acknowledgement policy, our diversity and inclusion policy, and our collection development policy, which builds on where we stand as a library in terms of our collection. But in general, our policy follows best practices from big libraries, from small libraries, and we're hitting all the points. You know, it's visible. We have the materials reconsideration form online. We have it at the desk. We have these avenues open, very open for any patron who might be disgruntled about anything in our collection. And I think it's easy to do if that's what the board would like to continue doing. So all I'm asking today is that we approve this policy with the suggested changes in terms of the related documents based on the evaluation across Ontario Public Libraries.
Questions and comments to Ellen in regards to our intellectual freedoms policy? Ellen, I had a chance to look through it, and I went through and I actually Googled some of the other ones you referenced. Our reconsideration policy is, I have to say, one of the better ones. I was quite impressed with it, to think we're a small community library and we're on top of it. So nice job there. Any other questions or comments? Since I hear no questions or comments, at this time we need a recommendation that the North Perth Public Library accept and approve these changes as presented in Appendix A. And if you noticed, they were highlighted in yellow on the master list here in front of you. So at this time, I need somebody to make that motion. Thank you, Matt. Seconded by Becky. All in favor? Thank you. The motion carries, and those recommendations will be accepted. We move on to the board self-evaluation. I'd like to thank Ellen for coming up with the self-evaluation. She shared a number of them with me, and I also appreciate that the board members completed the self-evaluation. Ellen and I discussed it today. It was a brief one, and it was kind of a first try at self-evaluation, which I think we did a fairly good job on. Ellen and I have said if we were to do it another time, in 1 year's time when we go back, we would try to do a slightly more detailed one that does a little deeper probing about us as individuals working and about the board. But at this point, I was very pleased to see the results of our evaluation. And I think there are some things to highlight in there and things we can learn from our evaluation. At this time, I will turn it back to the board. Do they have questions and comments in regards to the evaluation?
Terry, I think you missed 9.3 on the agenda.
Oh, did I? I'm so sorry. Thank you. Can we return to that in a moment? Since we've moved into the evaluation, we will go back to 9.3. Thank you, Sarah, for catching that. I'm getting old, I guess. Any comments in regards to the self-evaluation? I think it was and I believe it's question number 10, where we showed a person, I don't want to say a person, there was some concern about board background, skills, diversity, and knowledge. And I thought it was interesting that somebody pointed out that they disagree. And, when you start to think about it, we do have an issue maybe of diversity within our board. And maybe that's something that has to be considered. I know the board is not made up by this board. It is made up by the mayor and his council determines who sits on these boards. But our board, I think our skill diversity is great. I think there's other areas we're not as diverse. I thought that was a valid point that we need to consider as we move forward, that the board maybe does need to look a little different than it is. And that might involve adding an additional member to the board or something like that. But I thought that was very truthful.
I think it depends on who expresses an interest too. If there's no expression of interest or limited expression of interest, then it's pretty hard to touch all the bases.
I agree, John. It's not that they go shopping for people. It is people who have an interest, volunteer, fill out the applications, go through the process, and maybe we have to encourage people who wouldn't feel comfortable in those roles, maybe to inquire and learn a little bit about those roles. I'm not trying to push anything in terms of a group of people or anything like that, but I just thought, there is a point there that maybe we need to have a wider background of people in the various roles. And I would say that applies to any board within the North Perth community. I think sometimes they become very homogeneous. Any other questions or comments? I caught the one in number 1 where we disagree about our strategic plan, and I think we all recognize that we do have to move forward on that one. The others all were agree or highly agree, but if you wish to discuss any of them, now's the time that we can do it. It is nice that we do take a moment and look and see and reflect on what we're doing. This did not look at all the accomplishments and all the things we were met with, the challenges this year, but we did meet with a lot of challenges, and we have done a lot within the year of 2021, and I'm sure we'll be faced with similar things as we move forward. But when you start looking back, from the Moncton Library plans, the Moncton Library, the new library, to the Atwood proposed plans, to the proposed hub, to the CEO's replacement, COVID. We've done a lot within a year, and so hopefully it will level off as we move forward. Any other questions or comments before we move forward? The evaluation is for board information, and it can be, we can take time at other times and have a look at it. I think it would be also helpful as we move into our strategic plan. I know Ellen and the library staff had done a survey of the community users And I know the response was light there, but they're important parts that we can take forward and look at our strategic plan and how people are responding. No questions or comments? I'm sorry that I went out of order. 9.3, the use of public space. A few weeks ago, a member of our board, and I'll let the member of the board speak for themselves, but a member of the board came forward and suggested that we need to have a discussion about the use of the public space surrounding the library. That is the public space that we have control over, such as our parking lot, such as the Rotary Square in front of the library. We do not have the authority to dictate what happens on the public street, but we do have the authority as the library to determine how our property is used, who uses it, what they use it for, how it's going to be used, and is it a safe use of the property. So the suggestion was we bring it to the board. We have a policy for how we use the inside of our library and how people can use different rooms and how they can book things. And we thought we should maybe have this discussion about the use of our public spaces of our library, because we have had a couple issues come up in recent weeks where people have used the library's property without the consent of the library. So at this point, I'm opening it up to discussion. I hope you feel the person who suggested this feels comfortable as well about sharing their concerns. So at this point, I open it up to the board. Leanne.
Hey there. I just thought that it would be worthy of talking about it here at this level. It did come to the council table in terms of a request to use that property even more. And I just thought as a library board member that we should really talk about the usage of this area so that I think we need to have more of a voice and perhaps a policy about what we want that to look like, how we want that to look. Um, yeah, I just think it's really important that we put something in place. See, the other concern I have is very similar to I'm actually comparing it to the Atwood rink situation, okay? Where there is no insurance at the moment for that to be used, and different people are using it, but we have to have insurance in place. So I'm thinking about, is there insurance in place if people from outside organizations or outside businesses are using that space and something were to happen? So who is liable in that particular case if something were to happen on that library property and no insurance is in place? And that was part of the discussion that happened at council, which is very similar to the discussion that of course happened around the Atwood rink. So we have to be careful about what we do with that space, because it is outdoors and anything can happen in different types of weather, or even in good weather, things can happen. And we potentially could be responsible if something happens and whoever is using that space isn't already covered. So I just want to raise your attention to that. Yeah.
Thank you, Leanne. Matt, would you like to share something, please?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, I'd like to echo Leanne's comments that as a municipal-owned property, the liability would fall on the municipality. Even though the board can control what happens in front of it, behind it, or whatever, at the end of the day, it's still municipal land, of which falls under our policy. I guess it is public information about the request that did come forward. On one hand, I do have some concerns with that particular request that had come forward, but I also think that we need to be very cognizant as a board that adequate insurance is in place. The particular request that Leanne is mentioning, I have some issues with that just in and itself, given the location, is that I feel it's a little untoward, but that's kind of a personal opinion. but we have to be very cognizant of insurance. And I also think that we want to make sure that depending on what we have out front, unless it's a socially endorsed arts tour or something like that that is going on in conjunction with the town, like with an initiative with the town, with the BIA or something like that, that could possibly dovetail in with it, that I think we still need to keep the entrance, especially the front entrance and the patio out front, open for patrons that would like to visit and frequent the library as a library, not necessarily as an open market or as a tour stop or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I just wanted to, I had a discussion with Krishnell about this in the town. And one of the things I had addressed to him is whatever is happening outside the library should be congruent with what the library's values are. This is, yes, a community facility, but if this activity does not reflect the values and the diversity and all the things that this library and spouses, we should really think about who's using our facility. I'm not trying to judge anybody or any organization, but it is our property and it reflects onto us. There was another thing I had considered. Many people who use the library now expect the library facility to remain open, so they have access to our facility while they're doing whatever they're doing outside. And that requires us to staff our library at times, maybe when we would not normally have staff in there. So it costs us additionally in terms of our employees, and it might also alter our scheduling. And those are some of the things we need to consider if somebody is using the space and then they make a request that they can have access to the washrooms, which then means we have to provide internal staffing because we just can't leave our building open for somebody to stroll in to use the washroom. Like, those were some of the things that came up that we need to consider if people are going to use this space. What are the parameters? What do they have to seek permission from us? I know they can seek it from North Perth, from the Council of North Perth. What is their function? Does it match match up with what our philosophy is? Does it provide access to our clientele? Do our people feel comfortable walking through that activity to come into the library? So there's a number of things, and the insured issue. And as I was told, that no matter what would happen, we would want these people to make sure they have the proper insurance in place. But if there was an injury on site, litigation would happen and it would still likely involve North Perth, and we would likely have to bear the heaviest portion of the responsibility. Chris said to me, we could be found 5% responsible, but we'd end up paying 95% of the settlement. So those are some of the things to consider. What I'm basically coming to ask the board is, where do we go with this? What do we begin to do in regards to establishing a policy for the outdoor, I should use it correctly, the public space surrounding our library? So what do we want to do as a board? Do we want to establish a policy? Well, I'm sure we need additional information before we move forward on this, but it was important that we get it out there so people understand that we have these policies in place for the interior of the building. We just don't have them for the exterior. Go ahead, Becky.
So from an insurance standpoint, I guarantee you the town would be on, because in the land of insurance, you always go for the person with the deepest pockets. In this case will be the municipality.
Yeah.
So, but my other question, I just want to clarify, is this in regards to a request, something that's already happened? I think I know what you're talking about, but I feel like we're kind of beating around the bush. I'm not sure if I should just come out and ask. But, and then is there a request coming forward to us, or?
There are two current, there was a program called Out in the Cold, which used the facility, not the facility, but used the public space. And there was another request that a market, some type of shopper's market set up in the courtyard area and use that space for selling product. I am unaware of what the product is, Becky, but it would have been a retail purpose using our property. And neither made the request through us. They were making the request through the town, And the question has come up, do we have a policy in place how the property is used around our building? I think, Matt, you had a comment, and then I'll go to Leanne.
Yes, thank you. I honestly think that the library, like, is talking about working after hours and to do whatever, that any policy that we put in place, and I do think we need to have some information come forward about the policies that we should do. They should almost mirror the inside policy with any exceptions that would happen to come to the board. But for just using the outside for the sake of using the outside, you couldn't just necessarily go set up shop in the arena parking lot after hours. We can't expect to be open, that we can provide those services to be open for a previously approved type of sanctioned event. But we also need to keep in mind that that's for staff hours. Like for the open hours of the library, we do have some very generous hours that we're open, but I think it needs to be limited to that. Full stop. You get staffing time, you do this, that, and the other, but the insurance is an absolute killer, because with any insurance, joint and several liability, which is an absolute, in the municipal speak, it's an absolute detriment. If any fault can be found towards municipally owned property and public land, I do believe the magic number is 1%. If you can be found 1% at fault, like Becky had made mention, you got the big pockets. If someone's suing for $5 million and just for the sake of this conversation, there's $10 million available from the municipality, well, you go over that after that pocket. There's been significant, and this is case in point, sidebar here, why you get municipalities that don't allow tobogganing. They don't allow stuff like that on municipal property, only because someone can be legitimately, how shall I delicately put this, not careful or have a legitimate accident, but feel that they can sue the municipality because of something completely, well, you allowed us onto the property, or you didn't trim that tree properly, or that post shouldn't have been there and I tobogganed into it. Then all of a sudden the municipality could be found at a total loss and pay for the whole thing because they have the policy to do it. And that's why you get municipalities that we're not being big brotherish, we're being cognizant of ratepayers' money when it comes to insurance policies. It's unfortunate that it comes to that, but people will sue. You happen to fall. There's been many, many cases of it where stop sign certification has not been legitimately, stop sign certification, just to preamble, is the orange sticker that is on the back of a stop sign. If you look at the back side of a stop sign, there's an orange sticker on it that's got a little hole in it. They are dated for actual reflectivity testing. There was a situation that was not North Perth, and I digress for a moment, is that an impaired driver had gone through an intersection, going back to, if you see unassumed roads, use at your own risk. Those are up there for a reason until the subdivision has been completely ordained, so to speak, that it's met engineering specifications from the developer. An impaired driver had gone through a stop sign of which the intersection was built. The reflectivity should have been done in 12 months. However, it was actually done in the 13th month. He went through the stop sign and hit a child, and she was succumbed to a wheelchair. The lawsuits came in. She is a paraplegic, from what I gather from the story that I was told. This was at a symposium down in Toronto. But the municipality had to pay the entire shot because it was deemed that could the municipality be found 1% at fault because of the stop sign reflectivity certification? Was it done within the 12-month period? No, it was done in month 13. Aha, bingo, 1%. Municipality pays the full shot. So an impaired driver blew a stop sign, hit a child, put her in a wheelchair, municipality had to pay all costs for that lawsuit because it was a huge cost. Absolute horrible tragedy. The money is nothing at that point in time. But I'm just saying that type of stuff happens all the time to municipalities, and that's why municipalities come across as being what's the word I'm looking for? Domineering and controlling. Well, you're taking away our fun because you can toboggan down the hill. Well, no, it's because someone's going to toboggan down the hill and sue us into oblivion because they go through the water and it's April. And if they go skate into the river or hit a fence post or whatever that they thought they could avoid it at the bottom on a crazy carpet. I'm just saying that stuff happens all the time. So we have to be very careful as a board for what we allow to happen on that, because it is on the municipality's dime if it comes to insurance and something, heaven forbid, untoward happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Leanne, you wanted to follow up.
Yes, our property was recently used, and the outdoor portion, of course, at that courtyard area, and that there was no permission granted through the board or through the municipality to use it for that purpose. And so I'm just raising that to our attention, because if something would have happened, there wouldn't have been insurance in place. And I think that if we are going to permit any kind of usage of property, we've already talked about, how important that third party insurance is to have in place. And I think too that the usage of the property should be approved by both the board and council, I think, because council, of course, has a massive financial uh, piece to it if something were to happen. And I just think we have to be more cognizant about what's going on, and having a policy in place will definitely make it easier to implement something like this, and to kind of filter through what might work or what might not work on that property. So yeah, just something to think about. Thanks.
Thank you. Ellen, did you raise your hand? Okay. Becky.
Did they ask permission the last time they used it? Okay.
No.
No, and the information I have, the second one did ask the town permission, but wanted us to handle the insurance responsibilities. They want us to waive their $400 insurance fee that they would pay. Well, theirs was a retail, they were going to make money off using the property, so that I don't know how that turned out. John, did you wish to share anything?
Oh, I'm just listening to the conversation here, and I think I've made up my mind in terms of what we should do. But I think we should formalize it at a future meeting, and as Leanne had suggested, come up with some type of a policy that we can utilize consistently in terms of who uses the property. I guess what goes through my mind is what do we deem to be use of the property, and that would have to be well defined. Is a flag waving demonstration, gathering, use of the property, or are people just passing through? How do you define that term use? And that would be one thing we'd probably have to determine. But I agree with both Matt and Leanne that we should have some definite policy. You just you don't think of these things sometimes, and insurance is a big factor, and it certainly makes that decision a vital one to make. So.
Thanks, John. Leanne, you wish to share something?
Just to clarify for John's purpose, and we can kind of nail this out in the policy, but my feeling is that it's organized usage. So an organized group that's using the property should have permission. So like if I'm going to go there and read a book on a bench and use it for that purpose, to me that, it's individual, it's I'm not collecting money, I'm not doing it for a purpose, I'm doing it just for my own enjoyment. Kind of, do you know what I mean? But if an organization is using it for, or a commercial type of company is using it for commercial purposes, again, that's organized use, then that's where this policy would, fit and provide guidance, I think. But we can nail that out when we put this together. Thanks.
Thank you, Leanne. Shirley, did you wish to share anything?
Yes, for sure. I agree. We do need a policy. This is it's something I never thought of. I knew they used it, but didn't they use our washrooms and things too? Like
Yes,
from what I heard?
yes, they did. They used the interior space as well.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to consider when they make the request. And as I think it was Matt pointed out, they must work within our accommodation. We can't extend the hours of the library to accommodate them, because we bear the costs then of extended hours and cost of staff and the use of our building.
Yes.
Can I ask Matt and Leanne a question? Is there a policy in place for the public spaces such as the arena parking lot? Do they have policies in place for our park areas for use? Does the town have those that we could tap into those policies and have a look at them and see what we could do to make them work within library world? So I don't know, Leanne, if you know anything, or Matt, you know anything in regards. Go ahead, Leanne.
So there are policies around like a vendor type of idea that they have to pay specific fees and get permission to do that. And so there's a policy around that. Around the park, I don't know, like that's something we should ask Jeff Newell, our facilities manager, to see if, there's something else that we need to check into from a perspective from, all of our facilities, including our parks. But I think that this this really, even if they don't, I still think that it's something that we should be putting together based on what has happened, because we've had usage of this space without permission, which could have led to some kind of insurance ordeal. So it's probably better that maybe this is kind of a wake up call to perhaps not only put something in together for the library, but other public space in the municipality too, right?
Yes.
I just wondered too, following up on that parking example, if a bunch of guys want to get together on a Sunday afternoon and have a game of hockey in the library parking lot, would that be a concern, I wonder?
We would still bear the liability if somebody's injured on our property.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can tell you I'm sitting on another board and we're dealing with a parking lot because people have used our parking lot, and we are now posting to protect ourselves because people are using the parking lot inappropriately. Can I make a suggestion that we ask the town what policies they have in place for their public spaces? And if they have something that it would give us an opportunity to look at them. And I'm sorry, Ellen, I'm not trying to dump on you, but could we ask you, like you investigated the intellectual freedoms policy, could you explore what other library systems, even our own PIN, our Perth County systems, what they have in place in regards to their public spaces surrounding their buildings? And if we could begin to look at what is out there, is there something we can modify to work for our situation? It's just a suggestion. It gives us a place to start because we'll need to work on this. Any other ideas that we can implement here or move forward on so we can come back and look at this in the future?
I do believe that something needs to come forward. I will email the original request that had come through for board consideration. I'm just trying to get it right now, that was in the agenda package, just to show what were the type of requests that have been fielded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Well, we're certainly not going to develop a policy tonight. That was not the intention of sharing this information with you. It was to make you aware of the situation and to begin to develop a policy where we can we can move forward. Hopefully we could have this in place likely before September. It would be something that we could work on at the same time. We have many other things likely we have to work on at the same time. But I asked Ellen if she would be willing to investigate what is out there in terms of libraries. I would ask Leanne and Matt if they are aware of anything in terms of the town's policies of public space, if they could share that with us. I know Chris Schnell, I discussed it with him, and Chris has very clear had very clear comments about it, and I'll tap back into him. He was really concerned about the insurance implications. So I do think we have to revisit this in the next in our next meetings. So I leave it at that tonight. Before we move on to library updates, is there any final comments? Yes, Leanne.
Based on the previous usage recently, I'm wondering that it doesn't have to be immediate, but perhaps there may need to be some contact through a letter. Once we do have a policy to state to that individual company or organization, additional use of the outdoor portion of the property should be based on our policy or requested first prior to just usage, because they used it without permission, and the worry is that it'll happen again without permission. So I think that we may have to provide some kind of written information to them so they know not to move forward with it again. Just a thought. And again, doesn't have to be today or anything, but in the future, right?
Thank you, Leanne. Ellen, you wanted to make a comment.
Sorry, it was just the first time I caught it. There was permission asked for the most recent event, I think that we're all talking about. It was actually through the municipality informally. The library wasn't asked, but it sounded like the municipality was, and then the library was brought on board after the fact.
Thank you.
That is still being looked at for further information to come back to council just for the library board's relief. So that's still coming back for information because we required more information about it.
And I can tell you right now, even Chris Schnell said to me when I had the discussion, he would like to see the library provide some direction to the council in terms of how we see our property being used. So they're seeking our direction. We're seeking their direction as well. So it is something that we have to work hand in hand with here. So thank you so much for everybody's comments. They were very good. And let's hopefully be able to develop something that works for everybody. At this point, I go on to 10 library updates, and I turn back to Ellen. We're at 10.1 COVID updates, Ellen.
Sure. So you can see in our report, we are fully open with proper masking to people entering our spaces and lingering and having meetings again, although no bookable rooms are available, as we're still using those for staff to be properly separated. We'll follow along with provincial mandates as they go forward. There is some hesitancy in some of our staff about the masking mandates being dropped. So we're looking at how we can make staff feel safe and secure as we go forward. Masks will always be available for staff to use. But right now, hopefully we can get that COVID update off our agenda soon as we go forward through the opening process. That's it for the COVID update. If you want me to just
move on to branch updates, please.
The branch update, there's just a few notes here. You'll see in the stats that there's higher numbers of renewals for each branch. We're attributing that to our automatic renewal program. So as the board knows, books, if there's no hold on that item that you've taken out, it renews automatically. It's been a bit of a conundrum for some patrons to wrap their head around, but with lots of notices, it seems to be working well and increasing that number quite significantly, as you'll see in our renewals there. Another note, the floor in Listowel is soon to be re-waxed. So sometime in the future, we're not 100% sure, probably late April, early May, the library will be closed for a couple of days to get the floor done properly. We're going to try to utilize whatever weekend that is, that Monday, to do some staff training or maybe even the strategic planning workshop day. And just one other note, I wanted to say our library communities really showed up for us in February. We did a fun what's your favorite read author program, and people, and a draw in each community to a local restaurant. And our windows were full of hearts for all of February, and it was really an awesome thing to see. And we were able to take them down and actually look at our collections based on what people's favorite reads were, to make sure we're meeting those needs and those genres and those bits that people really do love. So it became kind of a multifaceted program that we thought would only happen curbside. So we were happy to see it come back and have all those hearts on the window. I hope you all got to see them. But yeah, for me, those are really what I wanted to point out this month.
Thank you, Ellen. It's nice to see that life is coming back to the library. Ellen, can I quickly ask you, this commercial day vehicle pass for Ontario Parks, is that a new program?
So it's new to us. They did launched it last year or the year before. It's just a day pass that you can take to any provincial park, and we're lending them for a week. So other libraries in the PCIN already had them. We are one of the ones who didn't. So we jumped on that wagon this year when it was available to us.
It's a pretty remarkable program. I saw that today and I had never heard of it before. So thank you. I just found that interesting. Any other business or questions of Ellen before we move to our in-camera session?
I really like the automatic renewal. I think it's a great thing.
Go ahead, Leanne.
Just something for Ellen. Just wondering about, and actually for the board as well, knowing that restrictions are starting to lift around COVID-19, and especially around the province, things are really, opening up. I'm wondering if the board and Ellen perhaps could look at a grand opening for a celebration for Moncton soon. And, it could be like, into June, it doesn't matter when, but even just thinking about a date and planning something, just to kind of do a celebration and having it top of mind now that things are looking like things are moving ahead. Thanks.
Thank you, Leanne. Becky, I'll turn it to you, but were you not planning a big celebration in regards to the 165th
Yeah.
anniversary of Moncton?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
they're doing something in conjunction with that. So the Friends are working on that. So I believe Sherry had booked an entertainer. It's going to be on the Saturday, so I think the library is going to be open for people to walk through. So it's not I don't know if you want to look at it as the official grand opening, but it is going to be in conjunction with that. It's the 24th of June that weekend, 24th, 25th. Yeah.
And you would like board representation there that day, I'm sure.
Yeah, once I know more of the details, I will let you know.
Thank you, Becky. We look forward to it. It's going to be nice to celebrate it. It's been, well, open for COVID, and we've never really had the moment to celebrate it.
Thanks, Becky. Thank you. That's great.
Any other business, Matthew?
Thank you. Just a point of order. I'm just wondering what should be done here, because it wasn't listed either on the public agenda and or our agenda that there actually indeed was a closed session, and the subject there too of what the closed session was.
I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but Sarah.
Is there a protocol for that, Sarah?
Yeah.
I thought it was on the agenda.
No, it isn't, Sarah. And you did send it to me. I'm sorry. I apologize. I should have caught that.
Oh, I just want to make sure it's not a point of order thing that come on, nothing to do with you, Terry, but it's also not on the public, the website as far as what the agenda is containing, because it doesn't show anything for in-camera session of which it needs to identify what is being discussed in camera.
Yeah, and we talked about that last Thursday, and I know I returned the email. I apologize. I don't want to switch over on this computer because I'll lose you guys and I'll lose the Zoom meeting. I don't know if Sarah can pull it up. We discussed it would be in regards to property.
Chris, are you on yet?
I'm here.
Any thoughts?
Technically, technically Matt's right for transparency. We should have disclosed it on the public agenda. So it's not critical tonight, so we could just defer to the next meeting.
Well, if that is the decision we have to make, we'll have to defer it to the next meeting, or I can arrange another meeting in a week's time where we just deal with that issue. It is not urgent. None of the stuff in it is urgent. It was more informational for you and the approval of one issue. So at this point, we will close our meeting, and so I ask for a motion to.
Sorry about that, but I just thought it was important to mention because I thought I missed it in my agenda package, and then I went online and I didn't see it, so I thought I would make mention of it. That technically I understand it's not critical, but possibly another meeting to quickly go through that would be warranted, and then the public can be adequately notified that that's what's being discussed and that's what's all that can be discussed in that closed particular session.
Yes.
If we're going to be, previously in the meeting we talked about complete transparency, then fair is fair.
That's fine. Everybody's fine with that. So at this point, a motion to close our meeting. Hello, Bernice. Welcome. You arrived as we're exiting, but it's great to see you.
Do you mean that technically I can be in attendance to this meeting because I came 2 seconds before it closed?
Yeah. I need a motion that we close our meeting. Thank you, Becky. Somebody to second that motion. Thank you, Leanne. All in favor? And I will see you all in April at our next meeting. It might actually be possible that we can be in the same room together by that point. So we'll wait and see how that will look. So any of the issues that were going to be discussed in the in-camera session this evening will be transferred to that evening. Sorry to inconvenience you, Chris.
No problem at all.
Well, thank you, everyone. The meeting's over.
Bye.
Sarah, you'll sign us out, Sarah, log us out.
Yep.
Barry.